Welcome to Between the Rig, a podcast hosted by Pushbox CrossFit. We're all about fitness and bringing you direct opinions wrapped in humor and a touch of, did they really just say that? We aim to help you understand more about coaching, gym ownership, and what it takes to get the most out of your fitness, mindset, and lifestyle, both inside and outside the gym. Let's get into it. All right, what's up, team? Welcome back to another episode of Between the Rig. This is a podcast by Pushbox CrossFit, and we really think fitness is super neat. And we have three of us in the house. We have a returning guest from the last one, Lavender.
Lavender.
And then Dr. Axe.
Hello. That's all I got today.
I wanted a little
Early
more
on
after
Monday.
that intro. Dr. Axe.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
We're all here.
This is a PR. This is like 2 in 2 weeks. So we're on a roll here with recording this. But Caroline, you're in the last one. And we're doing a swapsies. Adam this week from Josh last week. But I thought it'd be good. We didn't quite cover everything last time. So I thought this would be perfect for that. And so we covered a lot. And we discussed primarily the four, what we kind of call the four pillars of CrossFit: the brand, the methodology, the community, and what's the other one? Am I spacing? Sport. There it is.
Most importantly.
Yeah. See, I need to be. That's what it's about. And then kind of how they align with each other. Sometimes got in each other's way. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that episode. And then we got some kind of caller questions, for the lack of a better term, and one of them, a couple of them we kind of smushed together was the whole stigma and how CrossFit hurts people. So I figured it'd be perfect, especially with you, Adam, here, kind of talking about what you see on your side of the line in the clinical practice. And then also we want to go over the poll results that I threw out maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago at this point. And it was kind of from your program, what are the two most important things you're seeking from a fitness program, probably in this case push, because that's where you go. And it was between the 5 of aesthetics, strength, performance, endurance, and health. And we'll kind of quickly retouch on what we kind of loosely define those as, just for the kind of conversation's sake, and then share the results, and then kind of just go back and forth on, do we believe you, listeners? And what did we put? And what do we think people think they want when they maybe just have a fitness program, but also like why they join CrossFit specifically, especially if there is all these, is CrossFit a cult? I hear it hurts people. And so why are we doing it then, right? And all that jazz. I was going to start with a little question of the day.
Oh.
When you go to Chipotle, what is your protein? Like, what do you instinctively get most of the time?
Chicken. Every time. And aren't beans and rice combined considered a complete protein? So it's almost like double protein.
Ooh, I'd have to fact check that
But
with
I
the
don't
Chipotle.
So chicken.
You go chicken, okay.
Chicken.
I think initially chicken comes to mind first when I'm but I think 9 times out of 10 I'd probably go carnitas.
I don't think their carnitas are good.
I just actually think Chipotle sucks overall anymore.
It's
I haven't been in,
So
we just
fun,
talked about this the other day. That slate competition, we went to the Chipotle down the street, and that might have been one of the worst Chipotle experiences of my life. So at least top 2.
So we're not going to get sponsored by Chipotle.
No, probably not.
No.
So you
wouldn't want
you
it.
think chicken, but 90% of the time you go carnitas?
Yeah.
Okay, so I go carnitas. But the real trick is, I did this last time, is if you say go half and half, I'll do half carnitas, half chicken or something. The average Chipotle worker is not going to measure that out perfectly, so they're probably going to give you 3/4. So it's a good trick to get extra protein.
Sure. Just cheating the system.
Just sticking to Chipotle.
That's probably why their quality's decreased, because you keep getting too much protein.
Then I saw this trend that if you
Everyone's been doing that forever, though.
if you record them doing it, you're going to post yay, I'm at Chipotle, there's this pressure they feel, they overload everything. Ooh. It's like your burrito can't be folded. They're like, oh God, I'm being recorded. Ooh. It's like a cop being recorded. They're like, be nice now. And they're just throwing on protein and rice and guac. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I think I saw an Instagram of the Chipotle owner's like grandson doing like a freestyle rap that was actually pretty good, but in overalls and no shirt. He was kind of buff and holding a live chicken. I didn't watch it all, but I was like, this thing is going viral.
What is he going to do with that chicken?
Tune into the
Raise
next clip he puts up. Yeah, I just want to start off that way. Also, you didn't ask, but I'll answer mine. I go carnitas. Did I already say that?
You already said
that? Yeah, we already established
God, this
that.
coffee's not kicking in.
We were going to ask.
Long
but
weekend.
Then you just kept going.
As I do in these things. Long weekend of laying concrete floors,
Yeah.
limited
man.
sleep.
Yeah. You are now manual labor.
Yeah.
Welcome.
It's, I was really happy with the wood wall. And I think I'm still happy with it.
It's beautiful.
Because
still.
you get to see it every day.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, God damn, this is so nice.
I did that.
I think I petted it the other day.
With our face multiple times
press
as
it.
we were
Yeah.
doing handstand
Maybe
walks.
with your lips.
Yeah.
Just, like,
There's a little
gently.
tongue action.
Just gentle
Just
kisses.
eyes closed. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a teenager practicing kissing in the mirror, right?
Oh.
or a
people do that?
38-year-old adult. I don't know.
Ooh.
This one is like you don't see it, but it's really nice to not feel those just fucking rigid.
People are going to know.
Oh,
The people know.
it was like I'm already used to walking. I'm like, this is so nice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like as much as you can level a floor with like concrete by hand. Like David did an amazing job. I always appreciate him. Shout out.
Shout out, David.
Yeah, just fixing this thing one by one. But it's nice.
Nice.
And it's like most projects, it's never as easy as you think. We started to peel like the floor back, and he walked in immediately. He's like, "Oh, this is more than I thought." Then we started to peel some like loose stuff back, and then like that hole just kept going.
Oh,
I was expecting to find like a
no.
skeleton hand. I was like, "This,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
or Barry's treasured," but
Ooh.
neither occurred.
Barry's
DB
treasure.
Cooper. DB Cooper's treasure.
I don't know what that is.
What? You guys live up here. This is like a whole fucking thing.
No,
Well, now
yeah.
I know what I'm gonna do after.
It's
we were going
like
to talk
it's-
about health and wellness. Let's just talk
yeah,
about
let's,
treasure.
conspiracy theory. Right turn. The guy that jumped out of the airplane with all the money landed in the Cascades somewhere.
I've never heard of this.
Me
but now,
neither. Do
you
this is
people
how you
not
get me
know
to go
about this?
camping and hiking.
Yeah,
Is trying to find
they're
some
like-
treasure.
Supposedly he had like $1 million, like whatever. There's a
What's it
whole
worth
like
now?
$1 million.
$1 million.
Yeah, $1 million.
Million.
I don't
Okay.
know.
There's
A
no,
million can't get you far these days.
isn't
Would
that
you-
crazy?
But I would
I'll
take
take your.
it.
I'll take your.
I mean, I'll fuck with $1 million, but I mean, all right. So a member a while ago to Trish, and then Trish really relayed this to me. I thought came up really just great idea, and it was kind of like when we do these, kind of have maybe a little shout out to different members that we feel like have either been crushing it or that we've appreciated even more recently, or who we just noticed something about them. So just a little kind of tip of the cap to a member. Now, I'm not going to name that member, so I'm not going to shout that member out. But no, it was Noel. He suggested it. I think it's a great idea, Noel. But you're not my member of the week this week. You're my member of my heart. That was a great idea from a sweet guy. So I think we should just go around, and maybe one person that comes to mind. That doesn't mean we don't think about all of you, but just something about this individual stands out in your mind over the past few classes, weeks, months, whatever that you've noticed, and then maybe a little why behind it. Doesn't need to be long.
Sure. My shout out will be Kamran. He's been coming to the basics class quite a bit. He came to last week's, which was 3-position cleans, and then yesterday, which was 3-position snatches. And his first and second position is looking so good. I'm so proud of him. Yeah, so big shout out to Kamran, making big positional strength gains.
He has nice eyes too.
He does have nice.
He has nice eyes.
He does have nice eyes.
Good looking man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny you brought him up because the day I did the name question, he was like, I think I'm going to start going by Cam because it's just easier. And I was like, hilarious. But he was just like, it was kind of a joke where
Yeah.
we were all just kind of like talking about names and things like that. And so I just started, I was like, all right, Cam, like I'll just call you that from now on. So I don't think that's actually what he wants, but
Right. Well,
was-
probably a lot of people think like it's Cameron. Yeah.
yeah.
Ah, Kamran.
Kamran.
Yeah.
I picked Victoria Chin from my evening classes because she works really hard. She has really good questions. She has some stuff going on that she's like trying to get better at and like reduce pain in certain parts. And we always have really good conversation about those things. But also when she started, I thought she like was very nervous about doing some things, and you can tell she's like trying to move that needle and trying to like advance to get, you know, even into doing regular pull-ups and doing, you know, everything proper and getting stronger. And so my shout outs to Victoria Chin.
No, these are great.
Woo woo.
Yeah, Victoria is awesome. I'm going Susan. I usually have her in the morning. Sometimes she'll like, you know, pop in the workouts and the partner Saturday or things like that. Susan, I just think you're a delight. Just simply put.
She's an Iowa person. That makes sense.
Iowa, that's right. Yeah.
Go Hawks.
Always moves really well. Doesn't have an ego when it comes to a cue I give, because my cues can sometimes be very like to the point or this huge visual setup that like 9 minutes later, then I'll have you finally start doing a movement. And you can tell she's just listening, and like I'll look over, I'm like, God damn, that is a good hollow arch position.
Mm-hmm.
Or like just very methodical in the squat, you know, just like pushes hard. Probably sees other people ahead and behind her, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to move well every single rep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, give me something to really grind you on. But like, you're making my life easy. So like,
I
shout
got the
out.
pleasure of being her partner a couple weekends ago.
I hear you two are going to do a competition.
Where I at the end, she's walking out, and I was like, "Whenever you're ready, you know, you let me know." And she was like, "Absolutely not!" Like, just kept going, and I was like, "Great."
I made
But
that joke.
She was my partner. We moved really well. We communicated really well. Actually, it's like just partners. That's why I was like, "If you want to be a partner, like, let me know." So because she's
That's
just like
awesome.
moves well.
She's consistent. She comes like almost every day. I think I see her. Yeah. That's how you get better and stronger and fitter and healthier.
They should put that on like the back of the pamphlet for fitness. The more you show up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the more consistent you are.
Yeah.
She also like knows her limitations, where she doesn't like try to push herself over that line of like, I should be doing this. She's like, no, like
If I can copy and paste like 1,000 Susans, like it would be awesome.
an army of Susans.
Oh my God, just a fleet. A squadron of Susans. All right, well, let's hop into it. Does CrossFit hurt people? And I think the way I had this written in the last one was the kind of the general topic of the injury bug and stigma about how we train and what it does to us. Does it really hurt people? And I think LJ added this, so I kind of smushed it all in, was also how to have a sustainable CrossFit, quote, career as a Gen Pop athlete / training for longevity. So maybe we can kind of broach this before we segue into the poll. And I think it's, I'd like to get kind of just our personal opinion. We're also all athletes, we're all coaches, and then kind of take advantage of you being here, Adam, with kind of just what you actually see. Because I think sometimes, you know, I don't know, you flip a quarter enough times in a row and you get like 3 heads, you think like it's always going to be heads because it's like a recency bias. So like we're in the bubble, so all we hear and see is CrossFit related things, pros and cons. But like clearly you flip it enough, you're also going to get tails eventually. And for every someone who does have a shoulder injury, really like 7 don't. But we like don't think about those who are fine. We always have the thing that stands out as the big like glaring, blaring light that's like, look at that. And so does it hurt people? I guess. And so if you, Adam, see 10 people a day, how many of those 10 would you say are like, I am an active human, not just CrossFit related, but like I'm someone who does multiple things of a certain level of intensity, rock climbing, basketball, weightlifting, swimming, but like I'm a consistent fitness goer? Versus the person, I think one of the podcasts a while ago you referenced was like, my back hurts and I like Uber drive all day. Like you're not an active human.
Sure. There's, again, 2 sides of that coin, right? Like most of the people that I see because of the clinic that I work at are active individuals. I'm not just seeing, you know, the weekend warrior types. I'm seeing people that are out cycling, running, mountain climbing, rock climbing, whatever, like especially here. This is, you know, kind of a different population than you're going to get in other parts of the country or the world, because there is so much to do. But I would say probably 60-40, like my clinical experience of like 60% of my people are active. Also, because I'm involved with the gym or multiple other gyms, a lot of the people I see are gym goers because they want to keep doing the things that they want to be doing. Some of them are in there for preventative care. Some of them are in for maintenance stuff. I don't see a ton of like acute injuries. I do and I don't, I guess. A lot of the stuff is maybe something chronic that has been flared up due to activity as well. And I think that's something we're going to kind of segue into later a little bit. So I'm going to kind of hold it off there. But like that's kind of the population that I see of like, I sit too much and then I weekend warrior it, or I am like, I do 10 different things.
Can you give your kind of quick definition for people who like know that phrase but don't really know that phrase? They're like, yeah. But if you ask them to like define it, they're like, never mind, you go. When you say weekend warrior compared to maybe like us three,
sure,
we're not elite athletes, but then you'd also say we're not weekend warriors. So what is that, just to kind of clarify for listeners?
Some of my like weekend warrior people are the people that are sitting desk jobs, and then on the weekends they get out and do something, right? Like they might be active 1 hour out of their day where they're like going on a walk or maybe doing CrossFit. I even qualified that as like kind of weekend warrior type people of like, yeah, you may do CrossFit 3 to 4 days a week for 1 hour out of that week, and then on the weekends you may go ride a bike, mountain climb, whatever, rock climb, or go hike, you know, things like that. I think those people are kind of the weekend warrior types. They're not getting enough training to like push that needle into like advanced or elite, right? Like they're not doing the 12 to 15 hours a week. It's much more of like that kind of like low end, I do this for fun kind of thing.
I was going to ask if you kind of had a general, because I think a lot of people probably hear that. They're like, yeah, weekend warriors, those people. And then you're like, yeah, but also probably 1 hour a day and CrossFit 3, 4. They're like, oh,
absolutely.
shit, that's, wait, is that me?
You.
Like, wait, what? And then I would imagine most people are kind of like scoffing, like, that sounds like an insult, weekend. We're like, what do you mean? Like, but it's good to have you said like kind of 12 to 15 hours of like actual training, right? That's still like, you don't need to be like the elite NFL player or top CrossFitter, but there is this darker gray area between weekend warrior and elite that is still like, this is a lot of training, but it's now past that volume. You're like, I am consistently doing this thing to my body.
Yeah.
Okay, so of your kind of 60-40, of that 60, how many would you say are CrossFitters?
Again, I think I have probably a higher,
little more bias.
Yeah, I have more bias on that side. Yeah, absolutely, right? Like
because CrossFit hurts people, so they're coming to you.
Yeah, and again, that's the kind of the segue. It's like it's more the chronic, like the thing that happened when we were high schoolers or maybe college athletes, and now we're older and we didn't take care of that thing, and now it's being exacerbated by doing things.
How many people don't want to believe that when you say that? Because it didn't seem to bother them up until the point they're now doing this new activity, fill in the blank, for argument's sake, CrossFit. They kind of go from nothing. They used to have something, they were high school, collegiate, blah, blah, blah. They stopped. Like, I should get back into it. I'm going to go CrossFit. And then fill in the blank parts of their body hurt. In your brain, it makes sense to be like, well, it didn't hurt before I did this thing. Now I'm doing this thing. Ergo, CrossFit hurts me. But really, it had so many underlying issues they never fixed.
Underlying issues, and maybe even in the mechanical sense, right? Like, oh, I actually don't move very well or didn't move well before, right? Like, and that I think is the superseding thing of CrossFit. It's like you should move well before you then load all these things, right? And I have bitches about CrossFit. I've been doing it for 14 years.
I'm just gonna stop that sentence. Like, I got bitches.
I got bitches about
I'm like, all right, man, cool.
No, but
I don't know
like,
if Corey should be listening to this. But.
It is this thing that should be ever evolving, and lately I think that there's a little bit of stagnation in it, in the context of like, we should be looking at triplanar movements more. We should be looking at maybe more like rehabilitation style like movements in CrossFit, maybe in just the context of like warm-ups or priming or whatever before putting people under these high stress loads. And people, especially people that are like, again, weekend warrior types, that it's like you're not stressing these tissues enough to create an adaptation, and then you want to learn how to do kipping pull-ups or muscle ups or these high skill moves, handstand walking, handstand push-ups, that your tissues just aren't ready for.
So, yeah, I think that's really well said. I want to bookmark that because you mentioned the word mechanics, and then I want to throw over to you, Caroline, because usually we reference the pyramid, but there's another mini pyramid within. I don't know if you remember this kind of from all the stuff, and it has mechanics, consistency, intensity.
Oh, yeah.
And what is the definition of CrossFit that we always kind of hear? We were talking about this in the last one. If I was like, what's CrossFit? You'd probably spout out the
I'm not. I
Constantly
have my
varied.
L1 book in my
The constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity.
High intensity, yes.
What is that last word? What is the word that stands out most to you there?
Intensity.
Okay, right. So CrossFit really is like, it's mechanics. We want to make sure you move well. Consistency. I need you to demonstrate this over and over and over. Then you've kind of earned the right to be intense. But then you spout out that elevator pitch of constantly varied functional intensity. They're like, oh, fuck that. I'm just going to jump right to the top. So as someone who's going over, has this great opportunity in like mastering the basics, what is that point that you would stress to everyone when it's like, yes, the intensity seems to be the word you kind of see everywhere in all these graphs, but really mechanics, consistency, intensity.
Yeah. So mechanics, break it down. Let's get into the details. It's important to, sure, you want to do all the cool, intense, fun stuff and burn the house down, but we want you moving safely. We want you hitting your position 2 and your position 1 before you go into your snatch.
Because you did the Bergener warm-up.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't respond to your text, and I was going to, and then, I don't know, fantasy football was pissing me off, and I was on the edge of my seat with the game. But it was all the day, and you and I have been kind of learning on the fly as well with this, like, did not actually put a workout at the end, really. It was like build, once you now understand the positions, like build and weight, but it wasn't a Metcon, because I think, like, we're not here on these specifically Sundays to, like, get a workout in necessarily. Like, you're gonna sweat because you're just being beaten down position, but don't confuse it with a workout. Like, we're here to learn something here. But you almost spent the whole session doing the Bergener warm-up, position 1 and 2 and 3 with the PVC pipe, and then again rinse and repeat with an empty barbell before even getting into it. So how would you kind of re-emphasize to people, like, it looks like only every 2 minutes times 7 sets, go for load as you build for position 1, 2, and 3, but behind the curtain, behind the scene, that 60 minutes is actually really filled up with all this stuff. Because, I mean, you know, the Bergener warm-up, you Google that video, it's like 3 reps at each position, but I'm sure you did more than 3 because you're like, I didn't see this thing I liked. We need to keep going over this team.
Right.
So you're essentially saying, like, mechanics. It's not consistent. We're not getting to that intensity part. And, like, it's important for us, I think, to say, yeah, that was the game plan, but, like, it's not going as well, or it's going better. And, like, you didn't just rush them, it sounds like, just to get to the every 2 minutes times 7.
No, because
so how was that going?
So yeah, we probably spent 20 plus minutes over the Bergener warm up, which is like when you're doing these motions over and over again. I want your body, I want that mind muscle connection to happen before we load up all the weight. Like this is what's going to help you move well, prevent future injuries. And it was a long warm up. I mean, it was like those basics. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to do it twice.
I bet you saw some, like, sweaty foreheads though.
Oh yeah, people were. It was intense in the sense of, like, your body is not used to doing these things. But I mean, yeah, Kamran, like, freaking crushed his snatches after that, and I was like, you're amazing. Do it again.
Well, I don't think people realize how sweaty you get by just going over positions. And so the idea, like, well, I need to get my heart rate to 165 or it's not a good workout. Like, it's just kind of this BS notion.
Well, and it's a whole new thing your body's doing. So it's not just the perception of your heart rate getting up. It's, you know, getting your front rack all, you know, proper, and it's all these other things. But I mean, at the end of, I was gassed after coaching that class. I could imagine, like, everyone else that took it was, like, probably toast after that. And, you know, it was a beautiful Sunday. So, you know, hopefully someone took a walk to, like,
flush it all out
and all that. But this is, the intensity is there, but it's a slower, more intentional intensity, if that's a phrase.
I was thinking that actually when we were talking about intensity of like everybody's intensity is different, right?
Yeah.
Like it's this sliding scale, and whether it's doing a CrossFit workout where you're like moving through multiple movements and doing, you know, burpees into snatches into pull-ups and all these things, like if you, a lot of us have never done like strongman stuff, and where you're like, oh, I'm just actually carrying weight for X number of minutes, right? And like there's a different intensity. It wears on you significantly different than, you know, doing like a Metcon, right? Like, and holding a barbell for 20, 30 minutes is its own thing.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and being like subjected to that, I don't think people realize how kind of grueling it is. Back when I took my USAW, there were times where they're like, yeah, don't set the barbell down. And you'd be holding onto a barbell for like 15 minutes at a time. And you'd be like, oh man, my grip, my upper back, all these things. You're like, I'm carrying 45 pounds just for an extended period of time.
I think when Glassman says that the strongest athletes are Olympic weightlifters, I think that's 100% accurate, because not only can they, you know, their bodies are in these different positions lifting hundreds of pounds over their head, it's the grip strength, it's all these other things that will, you know.
Yeah, it's not for one rep. It is for one rep, but like the training of it is not one rep, right?
Exactly.
Like, if you've ever gone through any like intense Olympic lifting training, it's pretty ridiculous.
I'm trying to find this guy's. Okay, well, I'll get to this. The only reason I'm on my phone is I'm trying to figure out I'm spacing this guy's name. I was going to reference him in a second, but I mean, just give a little like more like data on something, just because I like my little facts. I was double checking some things here. Is like the injury rate. We've kind of talked about this before on one of our episodes a long time ago, and so I think it's important to, again, are you in the bubble? Everything's going to look so close to you, and so like this is happening everywhere, but you got to take a step back. CrossFit still is one of the lower injury rates per hours of training. And so it ranges from 0.27 to 3.3 injuries per 1,000 hours. And that's not a lot. And you're now talking about 1,000 hours of training. But then you just mentioned, like, if we're talking 12 to 15 hours a week is like now in that darker gray area of like not quite elite, but like you're past the weekend warrior, but then most people are gen pop / weekend warriors. My question is just the sheer math of that. You're not getting, it's hard to get 1,000 hours of training in and smush that in to a short period of time. So that's a long,
I can't even conceptualize like how much how long that would take, like
right.
how
I
many
mean,
days that would take
if
me.
365 days is a year, you're training every day for an hour, right? And then so I guess why does it seem like if the actual stats are showing it's not actually that bad, that should tell you that because it happened to your friend next to you, 40 other people around you have not. But then when it does kind of seem to get a little like streak of people, you hear like, oh, my back, my knee, God, this person, that person. Why does it seem to happen at a certain level of frequency? If it's saying it's not, but then it kind of is. I guess my question is, where's the responsibility lie on more? The athlete to realize like, hey, you never fixed that underlying issue we mentioned earlier. And now you're just hopping back in and kind of forgetting you took 12 years off. And where is that on the coaching about seeing something and having the kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, confidence, demeanor to be like, hey, you should stop that. I think a lot of coaches are actually very insecure about that. It's like, well, they're a paying member and they just want to have a good time. The classic, we're just here. Like, I feel bad. I'm like, you feel bad coaching? Like, that's why we're here. There's like a certain way to handle the conversation for sure. Don't be like, hey, dickhead, that sucks. I'd be like, well, maybe approach it differently.
Bring it down a notch.
Right. So why do you think that all these injuries are kind of happening, yet it's also one of the lower things? Because I have some ideas about this, but I want your guys' opinions on it.
You want to go first?
I was bringing back to,
you mentioned on the tissue stuff,
previous injury,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a lot of that is right. Like, and I think even when I was in school, and hopefully this is still correct, I'm not just spouting shit that may be obsolete, but like,
say with confidence, it's true.
Obviously. And so previous injury dictates re-injury, right?
That sounds like a fact.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made that shit up. But it is, right? Like if you have a shoulder thing that happened in high school or a knee thing or whatever, like more than likely, if you now start throwing high intensity movements at it, you're probably going to re-injure that thing because one, you probably didn't go through rehab the way you were supposed to. You didn't build that tissue back up. You didn't create an adaptation because you then rested things. And,
I was going to rest my foot. And I realized that's right
thought
on
you
top
guys
of
were gonna
Caroline.
play, yeah, do a little footsie action. But like, rest is not the answer a lot of times. A lot of times, unless it's like a legit tear of something, resting something makes things weaker.
What
right?
did you just hear that like blew your mind or something? Don't we were just talking like someone said they went to another professional and was like, you shouldn't do this thing at all. And then and then I posted something on a story about this kind of from this like known doctor. He was like, I think one of the worst damaging things you can be told is stop moving.
Yeah.
If you're hurt.
Yeah.
Like, don't put your hands over your head. Don't squat. Don't do this. Just lay. I'm like, what?
I recently, this is like fresh, but I have a patient who has an injury and went to a medical professional, and they told
Audio
them,
listeners, that was an air quote.
they told them like not to, they should never squat, like just ever. And I was just like, I had to
You're gonna
apologize.
shit standing up now.
I was like, I'm sorry that you went to them. Like, yeah. I like had to apologize, or felt like I needed to apologize that like this patient of mine ended up at this other place and this person told them that.
That's awful. That makes me so sad.
But that's a medical professional. They're like, but I went to a pro. This is not just like a Google search. It's just not my personal trainer. Because I feel like sometimes, we don't get recognized as like a credible source as well. But that's the information.
That it's now in his head that is something that he shouldn't do. And I had to be like, again, I felt necessary that I was like, let's let me apologize that you went to this person.
Yeah.
But that's not how the world works. And that's not how you work as a person, right? Like, unless you are like, oh, I have some crazy degenerative thing where every time you make a motion, you're rubbing bone on bone.
Sure.
And it creates pain, then I'm not going to tell you to stop doing shit, right? Like, you have to stimulate those things to create an adaptation or to maintain the adaptation that you've already created. And so when you start resting things, one, we see tissue atrophy, right? Like, your muscle starts breaking down because it's not needed as much. Your body doesn't want to spend resources on those things. And same thing with, connective tissues. It's like, well, like, why would I manage this thing if it's not being used? This is really just like the if you don't use it, you lose it scenario. And
Classic.
So it is. It's been there forever, and people keep spouting it. And it's like, but yet people haven't grasped that instead. And they're like, oh, just don't do it. And it's like, go fuck yourself. So, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's usually my go-to for a lot of things. But I feel like that's just like a chronic us as in humans mentality. Oh, I'll fix it once I need to. Yeah. But then usually when you get to that situation, I mean, you're fucked.
I guess I did. Yeah, I kind of got off on a tangent there, but like you have to fix it when it's a problem, not rest it and then try to be like, no, I can go back to this thing. And you've not made it better. You've actually made it worse.
Do you think there's any warning signs for people who may not have this glaring thing that's like, you need to fix me, like red flag, like pay attention? Like almost, how do you do preventative when you don't feel this already chronic pain that's like calling your brain's attention, right? And is maybe as suggestively obvious as well, if you're in the sport, meaning like the methodology of CrossFit, you're doing a lot of compound lifts, you're doing a lot through your shoulders, probably a lot through your hips and knees. You may not have anything there yet, but you should probably maybe do X, Y, and Z just to make sure you're maintaining that health and balance as you start stacking more hours of training on top. Like, are there common things? Because I think like on almost, it goes top down in CrossFit, at least when there are injuries or aches and boo-boos, it's like shoulder, hip, knee. It almost goes head to toe. Probably because, I mean, besides a sit up and an air squat, everything involves the shoulder capacity in some realm. I mean, today we had overhead squats, and I said, if that's a wonky position, don't just go less weight on a very painful position. Go front squat. And then, but even that, like external rotation, get the elbows up, or you're now wrist going to be a victim because like your shoulders can't blah, blah, blah. Is there anything you would suggest people would do, just even if a few minutes a day, that's like, just maybe take care of this one or two parts of your body? Here's a very low-hanging fruit stretch or roll or thing. Hey, if you get to the gym 2 minutes early, preferably 10 or 15, you're never wrong to at least do fill in the blank.
Sure.
There's probably a lot, but
there's so much because it kind of depends on the day, right? Like what's happening at the
Wednesday.
gym. What are you putting into it? What do you like? What's the workout?
Sure.
Shoulders are such a problem, and they're problems for clinicians as well because they are the most like one of the most mobile joints in your body, maybe the most mobile joint.
Yeah.
And so you need to add a lot of stability to that system. And that's where we start to see not even stability, but like end range control. Like you need to be able to access your muscles at that end range position. And this comes into, you're talking about snatching earlier, right? Like how many people have the ability to go from this internally rotated position to a externally rotated position?
4.
Moving weight,
I
right?
counted
Like,
this morning.
yeah. Unless you're a pure Olympic lifter and you're doing it all the time, every day, we're general fitness CrossFitters, right? Like
They're doing crazy accessory lifts that you don't see
absolutely
for that overhead position. So we're throwing snatches in, not to cut you off, a couple times here and there, but like this isn't just priming up, like they're literally doing clean and jerk and snatch, and everything they're doing is to make those two things better.
Yeah. And so we have, again, there's so much in the CrossFit world already, but yet there's all of these little accessory things that could be happening on the sidelines that are like, oh, I did I worked my rotator cuffs, or I stressed my tissues at these end range positions of, my overhead position, or this like end range external rotation position that we've talked about. And some of these people never see those. I have a shoulder thing because I'm an idiot and didn't do something for a long time and then was like, no, I can jump back into this. Mistakes were made, and so
But you got 2 bar muscle ups in a row.
I got
Hey-o.
4, I think.
Worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it.
You burn the house down when the open comes around.
And we'll never do it again. And, and lesson learned, right? Like I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to these things because I also like the sport of things and the performance side of things and I want to do stuff. But I should also be doing those things, right? Like, and I, for the most part, have the ability to do them.
So I'm going to throw some terms out then. What's your biological age?
41 this weekend.
Ooh.
Coming up, 6 days away.
Whoa.
All right, this isn't about you. No, almost happy birthday. What would you say your training age is? So I'm throwing these terms out so people who are hearing this understand the difference. Because if you're, what did you just say, 41, 42?
41.
So training, meaning not like occasional Groupons for like boot camps and bars, and even like, I've done CrossFit, I've done like sports.
I've been wrestling since first grade. I played every sport throughout high school. I found we didn't have like a weightlifting program in my school because it was just a country bumpkin kind of school of like, you had to drive 45 minutes to get to school to then work out. And so we were always farm strong. That was the thing. Like I worked on a farm my entire life, not my entire life. First part of it. Yeah. And then, I got into like weightlifting when I was in my early 20s. I don't know. I've been training a lot, like throughout my entire life. I've done something except for like for 2.5 years where I took a break.
Yeah. I asked this because I would imagine all of us have a very similar percentage of how long we've been on this earth versus how long we've had some level of consistent athletic, let's broaden that, training. And this goes back to like at least a weekend warrior, but like really above that. And it's going to be a very long time, a very high majority of the amount of days we've been on this earth. So you even having your shoulder injury, or you with yours, me with mine, is different than anyone else who's not that same level. Like you could be 41 biological age listening, and you have 3 weeks now of training age. You are like a fetus, an infant in the grand scheme of exposure. So you're now understanding and exposure to aches and pains is wildly macro, meaning like everything probably feels like a 10 when something feels owie. You're like, oh my God, I did something. And how many times, I mean, even Luna, I loved her to death. She's like, I think I broke my ankle as she's coming up and down the stairs. And it's so hard. I'm like, be a good dad. I'm like, oh. And I'm like, probably not.
No.
Rub some dirt
You're
on
fine.
it.
I'm like, I'm looking at it. I'm like, it's not swollen. There's no discoloration. And you just walked up the stairs. And now it's convenient that your ankle hurts when I'm like, you got to come downstairs to do these chores.
Yeah.
And it probably makes me seem less sympathetic, but I don't think people have enough exposure to that. But you also know your body well enough. And you can also come back from it, I think, a little faster. And your body is intact to handle how many times have you been in like a bike accident? Imagine if you were not a fit individual at the big training age.
Yep.
I mean, like, no more Coach Adam.
No, I've talked about that multiple times. Like, I've been in some serious injury, serious accidents and things like that. But like, even just like training where I'm like, oh, like hurt myself. And then I'm kind of back at it, not even back at it, but like maybe modified. And I'm just like, well, I'm going to keep training because there are other things that can be done. There's ways of actually making this better, right? Like, I'm not just going to let it sit still unless it's something that's like, oh, this causes me a significant amount of pain. What's that pain feel like? And I think also my knowledge is a little bit different than most people, where I'm like, oh, I know what I can do where I shouldn't put this effort into it, and then modify things as needed.
So I mentioned earlier I was on my phone because I was trying to figure out the guy's name, and it's going to come to me. I feel like I have half of it right, but I don't know if it's first or his last name. But he's the owner of Chalk Performance, like something Ryan Fisher. Fuck yeah, on the spot, I figured it out. Fucking so good at remembering names. I remember this was probably like just a clip that was like supposed to like grab your attention, as it did clearly, because now I'm talking about it. He was asked, well, what does he think? Because he used to compete. He was very competitive. He apparently had this very epic blow up at a judge on like a regionals level because he was getting no rep on deadlift. It was classic like shoulders over the bar, trying to go fast, so knees extended really quickly, assuming, and he just had a meltdown. And I think a few years later he just stopped competing. But he's like does a shit ton of programming. Chalk's a very known, more in California, but a lot of people do programming. It's not just CrossFit, everything else now. And he was asked by someone, what does he think CrossFit kind of did wrong maybe initially or out the gate? And he was kind of saying there's so much beauty about it, but he doesn't believe that there should really be movements of a certain skill level, high gymnastics and Olympic lifting, that almost require 6 months of learning just so you can start now doing it in a class. He's like, you could just get people fit and strong by doing your power lifts, your compound lifts, go hard on a rower and a biker, something that's a little like, less dangerous to new people, do some sit-ups, like do more burpee. Like his argument is like, now in hindsight, if you need to have this high level coaching to learn these high level skills that we kind of see relatively frequently in our methodology, he's like, I don't think that's the best, because some people are going to not have the ego check to not do it, and they get hurt. Are they really going to do it well enough? This is now, I'm expanding on how I perceive this, to even like get the proper engagement, the muscle breakdown, the aesthetic, the blah, 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 to do it well? Are they coming frequently enough that if you're coming twice a week, but it happens to be both days on like practice, that like you're not really getting a quote workout? And I'm right on the line of that, because I can easily argue both sides. And I'm curious on what you two thought about that. That if you started to like, if you redid CrossFit, or maybe you're getting these newer people in here, would you eliminate some of these things, or maybe have like you need to do a year of CrossFit without those? Like today I kind of articulated, hey, overhead squat to me would be performance for today's workout, and front squat would be fitness. One is a little more complex, potentially a little more on the body, and I don't want you to be hurt. Let's just get some good 45 reps of lighter, high volume squats into your frame. Do you initially agree with that? Because I would imagine, to go back earlier to when I said like it's statistically a very low rate, yet we seem to always hear about it. Is it because people are like, well, I'm an adult, I can hang by a pull-up bar, I must be strong enough, flail me, and then they like tear something? Is it because the temptation's even there to practice that movement because now you see this thing, of course you're going to want to do it? Or is it just like, no, we can still coach you that, but I need to have more direct coaches to articulate that and kind of like pull the leash back on you and say, I need you to just not rush to the finish line. You're doing this forever. What do you think CrossFit would be without these high level movements? You can still deadlift 500 pounds. You can still do a lot of push-ups. There's still Murph. There's, like a lot of these things don't need it. Or do you think, no, we just need to coach it better and you need to be less egotistical about it because there's a lot of beauty in those things?
Yeah. Well, I would keep it, but I would keep those high level movements, but I would have more of an emphasis, like, from a coaching perspective in, like practice, in getting these mind muscle connections, like making sure you can do these, let's say you can do a clean and jerk with the PVC pipe before I have you, do the RX weight. So Yeah. Short answer, yes, I would keep the high level movements, but I would promote more of this, slow down. Let's get this right the first time.
But Caroline, I think I move better with more weight in my hands.
No, you don't.
That was me being people who say that. That was not Aidan.
No, you might think you do, but you really don't.
Yeah.
Have you tried filming yourself to see if,
Well, in what context?
I don't know, we have a tripod. Get your video out.
Oh, and like fitness filming myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I thought you were talking about other filming.
No. What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Mostly because I started CrossFit pretty early on. Again, I think there was one CrossFit gym in Kansas City. Yeah, kind of OG system.
Mm-hmm.
There was one CrossFit gym in Kansas City. Their affiliate number was 7, which is also kind of crazy. I think
Dang.
something wild. And I came into it and had to learn those things because I came from a bodybuilding background where it's
Me too.
we're doing arms today, and so it was just big arm day.
Mm-hmm.
And but I also got luckily into a group of people that squatted ass to grass, that was a thing. So I squatted early on in my weightlifting career. But then CrossFit came around and I was like, I don't know what a snatch is. I don't know what a clean and jerk is. I don't know what a kipping pull-up, those things where it's I had to learn gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say if I had to redo it, it would be much more focused on moving well. Like we've talked, gymnastics, being able to move your body well before I would put a barbell in my hands. But I also really love Olympic lifting. And it was something that I didn't know I needed in my life, coming from that background, and also being taught really shitty cleans in high school, football things. So my perception of it was this is I don't know how to do these things. So if you have a really good coach, if you have somebody that can essentially take your hand, grab your hand and be let's walk through these things and teach you how to move a barbell very well, I think they're incredible movements to promote fitness and promote health and things like that, because you're creating power output, you're creating better mechanics overall of just moving your whole body with weight. So I'm pro having them in there. I think his argument is, can you get fit without them? Of course, but that's everything. I can fucking put somebody on a bike and be you're gonna get fit somehow.
So I'm gonna piggyback off that really quickly because I think we got one of you're nearing the end, but I want to go over this poll. But when you said, can you get fit without those things? I think it was LJ's question, how do you promote the longevity of a healthy CrossFit career for kind of Gen Pop and blah, blah, blah. This is where it's really important to kind of listen to your body and err on the side of consistency is most important than just burning it down in a classic CrossFit Metcon way. I'm a big fan of disguising small volumes in long intervals. So if I'm kind of feeling creaky or achy or something, I'm rowing is simple, biking is simple, ski form is a little less simple, but these machines aren't as damaging than improper external loading, like a deadlift with bad form. You're gonna feel that. I'll do something that's 20 rounds, a 500-meter biker for, that sounds scary. That's a total of 1 minute on the, or 20 minutes on the bike, right? 21-minute rounds, and could be 5 toes to bar, 10 push-ups, 15, here's simple things. And I'm showing up today. I'm not overly damaging my body. There's no weird guilt obligation to a cranky overhead squat that I feel I need to do. But I'm always going to do those movements. So when I do feel going heavy, maybe I'll warm up and do the Bergen warm up with just a barbell, just to make sure I kind of scratch that itch and make sure my mind and body's connected, and then move on to simple fitness. Because now I can really dial up, because so many times I've started not in the mood. And then I'm oh shit, my jam comes on. I'm 3 rounds in. I'm I love the song, and pre-workout hits. I'm fuck it, I'm feeling it. And I can really kind of get after it, but it's in a safer realm. So I would say my answer to your question, LJ, is not every day needs to be an Olympic lift or handstand walking or these big things. You can always practice those. So now you're taking them out of a Metcon and intensity. You're going back to mechanics and consistency. And then if you still want that intensity, choose the simplest movements,
Mm-hmm.
right? Power lifts instead of Ollie lifts, simpler gymnastics, almost like a Cindy compared to a Mary. So like pull-ups, push-ups, and air squats compared to pistols, shit ton of pull-ups, handstand push-ups. Like now I'm moving, I'm passing through all ranges of motion, but like I'm not doing this like craziness to my joints and nervous system. That's been my kind of key to like days I don't feel like it. I extend what I'm doing, but simplify what I'm doing of the modalities.
Yeah, smaller bites, right? Like
Yeah.
how to eat an elephant, right? We don't
Yeah.
promote that in Seattle,
Yeah,
eating
right.
elephants, because people.
But
here
you
are
definitely
very
approach it
sensitive.
very small.
But you
Yeah.
gotta start eating small bites.
All right, let's get into this poll. So again, we mentioned what do you honestly, is the way I quoted it, want from your fitness/program. So your fitness and then the program you're probably using. And there was health, strength, aesthetic, performance, endurance. I shared you the results, but for those who listen, there was pretty much you got 2 votes and 100 people submitted in. 28%, number 1, was health. I'm going to round up here for all these. So it was like 27.84. 28% health, 24% strength, so pretty close. 22% aesthetic. Those are the top 3. So again, 28, 24, and 22%. Number 1, health. Number 2, strength. Number 3, aesthetic. Then it goes to 14% performance and 12% endurance. What were your initial takeaways from that? Were you surprised? Were you like, I could see that? Could you see one of them but not the other? Do you remember what you 2 voted on? Things like that.
Yeah.
I did not vote.
I
Really
voted.
skewed the poll here.
I did not pick health. Woohoo. I picked strength and performance. I love to lift heavy shit. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. It's why I go to the gym. It's what gets me in the door.
Yeah.
I look at, I know health is important for me, but I see it like you can get healthy from sitting on a bike, for hours.
And to clarify, because I think there are some little like people try to get very, I don't know, cutesy with what it was like health. Are you on less than more medications? Are the metrics when you go get your blood pressure okay?
Yeah.
Are mental health as well? Like that, right? I think we can categorize all of this under the umbrella of health, but I'm just talking like I'm not needing things to kind of stay upright. I'm getting off medication here. I'm moving, like that's what we mean by that. Yeah.
And I can understand why most people would pick health as their number one thing.
Yes or no? Do you believe when people said when they voted for health, or they felt like that's what they needed to?
I believe them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, like most people, don't want to go to the gym, but it's the whole thing. Oh, I want to have better baseline metrics. I want better, lower blood pressure, all that stuff.
And lower bread.
Lower bread.
I want all the bread.
I love bread.
That's why I go to the gym.
Yeah, I believe the people that said health. I also, I just kind of see that. I know being healthy is important, but I think doing CrossFit specifically, I think that's kind of just a side bonus for me. I'm like, oh, I get to do this fun stuff. I get to be super strong. And I'm just
Look at that. I'm not on medications.
I'm not on medications.
Yeah.
I'm going to maybe live longer. We'll see.
Never know.
And then I also picked performance because that sport side of it is important for me. I want to be able to always compete, for life.
I think that's a good distinction. We were talking about this in the
Yeah.
car. We don't mean you have to now sign up, or your only goal when it comes to performance is I'm signing up for a CrossFit competition.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, or the ability to do and do well and beyond, and maybe some of the little more advanced things. Like I'm putting a little bit more emphasis on like I'm really needing to make sure I hit the standards, not just a general quad stimulus by squatting parallel. Like
100%.
you can do all the stuff. You see the things on the board. You care a little bit about that. You're trying to go through the progressions to get better at that next movement, not just worry about the heart rate and the sweat and all that.
Yeah. I also see aesthetic, like big muscles. I think that's also like a benefit. Like I don't need to have the biggest quads, but it's nice.
Right?
But we want
Quadzilla.
them. Yeah.
But I would like to have them. I get why people said health. I get why people said strength. It's great to be strong.
What are the 2 that we're back to this elevator pitch. these were the 5 options. Someone's like, well, what is CrossFit? You had to use 2 of these to kind of generally quickly describe what they may feel or what it is about. I guess this makes sense to me, but I also am kind of laughing in my head, and I'll explain why.
I don't know how I would do that.
I guess I would I think CrossFit is very, especially in the sport of CrossFit, very strength biased in some of the tests.
Mm-hmm.
But I would overall instinctively, as someone who does this and coaches it, like it feels very performance and endurance-y. There's a lot of pitter patter.
Mm-hmm.
We're always asking people to meet standards. Can you do the do? Are you going to RX it? Are you going to scale? Because there's like, are you going to show up and do the movements well?
Mm-hmm.
Can you perform the task we're asking you to? You're definitely going to feel some feelings. Not every day is a 1 rep. Yeah, it's the 2 least voted on. I think that was the thing that caught my attention. Is people are always like, I feel like there's no finisher. This is only strength. Where's the gross stuff? Yet no one wants it. But then everyone wants it when it comes to their opinion on programming. I'm confused,
You can't please
you all.
everyone.
I'm confused.
No.
So you didn't vote. What would you have voted on?
At this point in my life, probably the top 2, health and strength, because I think strength allows me to be capable in the world, right? Like going out and hiking, going out and riding my bike, doing things like that, you know, moving furniture, like general like life things. And then as I've gotten older, I've moved away from that kind of like performance, and not even performance in the more sport, right? Like I view even performance as like being faster when I go hike, or being capable to carry more weight and things like that. I think that actually plays into, I don't know, I think when CrossFit came around, it was how does this supplement your life instead of, and I think that kind of falls in that performance world of like, oh, it allows me to be functional and do things. But as I've gotten older, it's much more like, oh, how, like, is this helping me live longer, longevity wise, you know? And so it kind of is that the health side of things is more my goal these days versus like, I'm going to compete all the time. And I love competition. It actually is one of the reasons that I keep coming or sticking around with CrossFit, because it's like, oh, I get that little bit of like, oh, I competed today, you know, even though I'm not competing against anybody but myself. So, which is nice. But I think I would probably agree with this, the health and the strength side of things. So, and then obviously looking good naked is important for everybody.
Yeah, I went performance and aesthetic. That's it.
Yeah. Nobody else cares. Nobody cares.
Makes sense.
I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, like, let's be honest. We want all of them. So when you say pick your top 2, it's not like you don't give a shit about the bottom 3.
Yeah.
But I kind of lean towards you, meaning like I'd Whoop for how many days in a row, because I cared about like how was my
1,599.
That's all that I was actually trying to think of the number. I knew there was a 99. There you go. For years, and I was like, I wanted to know the outside metrics. So my health is like, what am I eating? How am I sleeping? I don't drink alcohol, like very rarely. You know, like these are these other things. And I'm curious if we all should kind of tie this in. How many people are like, I do this for health, but actually aren't doing the other 23 hours? And so they kind of just slap themselves with a fitness program and then wonder why these recurring injuries come back up. And I think all this kind of ties into that. I'm like, I don't necessarily disbelieve that people want health from it, but I think they want this to hopefully be the thing that fixes
The counter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
They're like,
outweighs all the shit I've done. the
yeah,
other
what
times.
program seems like it will like band-aid most of my problems without having me actually need to fix those problems? Wait a minute, why is my rotator cuff hurt and like my nervous system seems crashed and I'm just not recovering? And I think it's that classic, I just want the thing that's going to get me to the end quickest instead of enjoying the journey and respecting the journey and the process in which to get to that destination. So that's a little bit why I'm like, I don't not believe it. I think we all want to be healthy, but I kind of just, I don't know, kind of giggle and roll my eyes at the same time because I'm like, if you're truly, truly just doing it for that, let's put a little more emphasis and focus on the other 23. And I would recommend not looking at this as a hopeful fix all. I think that's also what promotes a lot of these little micro tears and the lack of recovering. And because when you're working out, you're tearing and damaging, and we've said this over and over and over, your body. So if we're not recovering properly, I mean, as someone who just helped David lay 10 bags of concrete and for 4 hours being bent over, I like knowing like I can fucking do this.
Yeah.
And so that performance side is very important to me. And like, yeah, I have no issue being like, I want to still make sure I'm looking good doing this. The amount of people are like, wait, 38? I thought you were younger. I'm like, that, yeah. It becomes more flattering as you get older.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kind of not really anything when you're younger.
I've been getting some like comments like that lately.
Oh.
And I think I'm still young. Like I'm 31, but there are people are like, "Aren't you like in your 20s?" And I'm like,
That's
"No, but thank you."
We had one specific question for you. It looks like you're in your phone because you want to bring something up.
Oh, I was just looking at this stuff.
Oh, okay. Someone wanted to know, a female member asked, how do you recover, Caroline?
How do I recover?
As I think also because they just admire you as a human coach and athlete, but also from a female perspective. I want to at least give that little anonymous shout out question in there.
Oh, thanks. How do I recover?
Because you're strong as fuck, and that
Yeah.
takes a lot of toll on your body.
It does.
What did you just do for your 5?
Well, I'm gonna retest it today, but 290 was my last one. And yeah, it blew my own mind, honestly. I was like, how did I just do that?
You're catching up to me. So how do you recover?
Eat. It's so important. It's so important to eat lots of protein, lots of carbs. I am an athlete that really benefits when I eat enough carbs.
Most do.
Yeah. Sleep is so important. I do have a kitten though, and so my sleep hasn't been as good lately.
Oh, there you're gonna promote get a kitten. It helps
Get a
recovery.
Get 2 kittens.
I mean, yeah, the kitten's great for when I need a nap on the couch and we're just napping on the couch together, so that's good. Sleep, and it's so hard to get good sleep. Like, if you have different things going on in your life, you get up early, or you have a job where you have to work late or something like that. Prioritizing sleep has always been really important for me. What else do I do? I will say, this is bad, but I don't stretch very often. I am not an athlete that
We
has
can edit
had.
this part out.
Yeah, you can remove it. Other people, like, if I know stretching is so important for people with limited mobility and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Adam, I don't know if you have more research on that because I think we have like 48 seconds left. But I think there's an actual like age range. Like I want to say 40s in a way that like we actually can noticeably see a limited range of motion occur. But then we're still trying to do these athletic endeavors and explosiveness. So that's why like I in my class last time we were talking. I think it was like the banded deadlifts, and I brought up the strength continuum. And goes on absolute strength to absolute speed in the bottom. And then an example of that is like a 1 rep dead and then like a 40-yard dash sprint. And you actually need to start from the absolute strength and work your way down, because how many times I remember doing this at the old gym. The coach programmed a few of these kind of like willy-nilly days. You go outside and we're doing like shuttle sprints in the street. And the amount of like 43-year-old guys that blow a hamstring out was super high because I'm like, well, hold on. They're like showing up twice a week. Even if it's stretched out or not, like you're asking them to do very fast twitch, explosive things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any kind of? I feel like I've seen this multiple times, and Hinshaw's talked about this. I don't have the number in my mind, but you get to an actual point. You see like the old man shuffle run, like you have limited range of motion, but then we're asking people to always go to full range of motion, and doing these point A to point B, explosive beat swings, things like that.
I don't have any research to like back anything that I'm about to say, but like
Yes, to say it confidently. It's a
yeah,
fact.
absolutely. But yeah, like this I think actually comes down to like people not entering those ranges of motion, right? Like we do it in class or things like that, but then you ask them to do this like high intensity thing of sprinting is crazy hard on your body anyway, and then if you haven't done it for 10 years and then you ask it to do it on like
Just
a weekend,
say no. Just stop.
just don't.
Yeah.
Like like don't do it. But it is one of those where like people just like haven't done that thing, right? Like I haven't sprinted in probably 10 years, like gone hard.
Yeah.
And I would probably tear a hamstring right now, like because my body can produce force, but my tissues have not experienced that in a very long time. And so if you want to warm up to those things, you have to do those things on a more regular basis.
And I'll leave this with another cliffhanger. Josh is actually going to take over the majority of the next cycle. So usually when we meet up, it's like me and him, and then he'll make sure I'm not like programming 3 pull-ups in a row, days in a row, and things like that. And he's going to take the reins on this one, with me kind of being like the Santa's helper elf in the sleigh ride and everything. And he wants to put a little more focus on power output. And we'll get him on the next one to kind of have him and I go over that so people can have an idea of what the next cycle is going to be. But it just kind of reminded me, like, we're going to do some explosive things, some box jumps, some different more like actual plyometrics, not just like a lot of jump lunges. I think they're often confused as like, I'm doing plyometric training. I'm like, not really. And we'll kind of nerd out on that. But like, whenever you can, like, get through these end ranges of motion, so you're giving your body, like you said, the exposure and adaptation, because you can create force, but doesn't mean you actually know how to get from that end range and expect good things to happen. So we got to log off. I thought that was really good. I appreciate both of you being here. And kind of like Caroline said earlier, like, show up as consistently as possible. I think what goes on is you show up 1 to 2 times a week. That's not really enough to move the needle. And then you're doing hard things, because CrossFit is super awesome and it's neat. But the intention, no matter how we scale it, is still to get the stimulus to be, relatively, that was a hard one today. I mean, even today's butterfly sit-ups like got hard after a while. So when you keep doing these random things, it's just more probably like a punch in the face over and over. Take care of your body, show up more often, scale more frequently so you can show up more often. Let your body get used to the exposure of volume and tissues and all that, and you'll see a better like longevity in your career by showing up more frequently, but not always feeling like you need to burn the house down. Is my kind of last 2 cents. You guys have a sign off?
Scale it if you need to. We're doing this for a long time.
Buttery bro, scaled for life.
Scale for life.
Scaled for life.
100%.
I don't know. Stop hurting yourselves.
Yeah, guys.
Just
God
knock
damn
it
it,
off.
stop
yeah,
it.
Just knock it off.
All right. Fitness is neat. You two are great. Love you all, and see you at the gym soon.
Bye.
Toodles.
Peace.